Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. Gold and silver, and how fear drives the markets. Let's explore. Today is an appropriate day to cover this topic because as of the recording of this video, the Dow Jones Industrial Average has lost 1,000 points, and it fluctuated today. And usually what happens with the stock market also reflects upon the precious metals markets. And that is the key thing to think about in terms of making buys and selling as well. You know, what drives these markets? A lot of times it is fear. The psychology of the markets is a real thing, and that is the phenomenon that we're witnessing yet again today. You know, we've been seeing gold and silver rising relatively dramatically over the past few weeks for fears that have been centered around a particular ailment that has been plaguing much of China and also other nations around the world. Recently, we have just heard that it has spread to Italy and a number of deaths in the nation of Iran as well. And so when reports like this come out and we hear other anecdotal stories about what's going on to contain it in China, you know, this is the kind of thing that scares a lot of people, and understandably so. Make no mistake, you know, there is some legitimacy to some of these fears. But we also have to take into account media portrayal and reporting on these. You know, there is a sense of sensationalism that is out there in the media. So we have to take things and take that into consideration when we make our decisions financially in terms of our portfolios and in terms of how we view these markets. You know, panic is a very irrational behavior many times after a certain situation or crisis is over. The best thing to do, and most people will tell you, but it's easier said than done in some cases, is to prepare and to be diligent in times when there's situations that arise and that you're hearing on the news or what have you. Many times, sometimes it's not as serious as some lay it out to be. And that is another topic of this video that I want to explore, because how are the media reporting this and other news? It doesn't have to necessarily be related to a particular what I call gray or even a black swan event, such as what we're witnessing right now, but it can also be related to other factors and in terms of economic conditions, driving precious metal prices or any other markets up or down, and based off of sensationalism in the media. You know, there's some things that news reports that come out that can have an effect on the markets almost immediately. And then there are other things that take a while. You've heard the term baked in terms of economic factors, such as if the Federal Reserve is going to raise rates or not, and that will drive the markets. And then there's other situations that we see that are fluid, that are being reported upon, say this has never happened before, or to the magnitude that we see it occurring. So all those things come into play, and then they can change on a daily basis. The news cycle is incredibly fluid for more reasons than one, not only because of some sensationalism, but also just realistic changing conditions. And something like what we're witnessing right now that can occur, well, those types of things can certainly have an effect on the news cycles of the day, because of how quickly information can spread, and also how fears can subside and increase literally within the same trading day. In fact, we saw that happen here on this very day, listening to news reports and following the prices for gold and silver. We saw them go up dramatically at the beginning of the day and then subside back a bit, and then start to make an increase backwards up towards the end of the day. saying, well, it's largely contained. About 99 or upper 90 percentiles of these cases are in China, and others are spreading outside of the area, much slower than the death rates and the like. But it's the economic factor that the markets are worried about. And those concerns, and especially with some of the impact and some of the results of this, have not really been felt yet economically. So there's a fear of what that impact will be, and that fear factor is something of relevance for these markets. And so it's a fluid situation with the news cycle, with where things are going. We saw this happen before, even earlier this year, late last year, with the strikes on the Saudi oil fields and with the situation with Iran. Panic set in with the markets. Gold and silver went up drastically, then they fell back. But keep in mind that as these markets make their selves known in terms of the stock market falling or going up or what have you, we're seeing the metals do what they do always. The metals act as a hedge. They act as a safe haven in these times of economic uncertainty and general uncertainty. But make no mistake, if something were to become more drastic, if there's a situation where this thing becomes larger than what is being reported now, or some of the stories that are being told, which, by the way, sometimes it can be hyped up, sometimes it can be hidden. That's the thing with news. People are skeptical of the news these days for good reason. So they either can brush it off, or they can take it seriously, or overreact. You can underreact and overreact, and people of sound mind could do so in certain cases where the media are concerned because of so much misinformation out there and how it does change on a daily basis. So a lot of that is just normal psychology as well. But that does have a lot to do with these metal prices. Fear does play a part. And I would encourage you, the viewer, to not panic, especially in terms of precious metals. You can do our due diligence in terms of other ways, especially if you're watching from around the world. Whatever nation you live in, especially in Italy right now, take precautions. Do your due diligence and take care of yourselves and your families. And diversify as far as preparedness, not only for real world situations that can occur, but also with your financial situation. Be diversified, but I think it is a good idea to have some gold and silver, but don't overextend yourself for a situation that hopefully, we pray, will subside in due course and due time. If that happens, these metal prices will go back down, and all will return largely back to normal. I mean, it has been a crazy 6-7 months, just in terms of all the different things going on in the news, not related to this, but just other types of factors and things going on. So what do? We press on with our lives, and we live our lives. Yes, we do talk about gold and silver a lot in this community, but there are times when you try to be as sensible as you can in accumulate as you can afford to do so. Even in times like this, there's only so much you can do anyway, and largely, to be prepared, and fiscally, and in terms of just basic survival and skills. Those are the things that we should do. We do it in moderation, because make no mistake, when we accumulate precious metals, and the amount that you've accumulated before all of this began, before prices started going up or what have you, you're already ahead of the game. The vast majority of Americans and the vast majority of people in the West in general really don't understand gold and silver, much less have any of it accumulated. And so you're really ahead of the game there, I think, no matter what. But by and large, this is a time where certainly many of us have talked about for really many years on this platform. And it's coming in some ways to to a situation at hand. There's other situations that we talk about emergency preparedness out there, and this is one of those times, especially if you live closer to the epicenter, where it makes sense to take precaution, where gold and silver certainly will not save you. But in the end, with the markets and the way they move, it's a good idea to have gold and silver as insurance, as a safe haven. Because what happens? The stock market goes down, precious metals go up. It's really as simple as that. And the movements we are seeing closer and closer tied to each other in those arenas. And that is that fear factor that I talked about. So there you have it. Very interesting indeed developments today, I think. Who knows what how the week will turn out in terms of the markets themselves, generally, and in the precious metals world. But we will just press on. I hope you enjoyed this video. Post your thoughts below. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.